So hello good people of the internet, it is I, Tommy Kelly, and this is Adventures in Woo Woo. So, coming up we have the monthly Q&A, which led to answers like this. Penis-shaped potatoes can be a good one. Then that's followed by a small talk on a sigil activation process that I use called SIGIL Offering. I also like to put coins on top of it. And I do this because it makes people more likely to, bend down, pick it up, look at it and wonder what it is. And finally then, if you're a patron, you get an extended 25 minutes to the show where we talk a bit about Liber Null, which is a foundational chaos magic book by Peter Carroll, which came out in the late 70s. I need money from my rent. It's Friday's approaching, it's going to happen, magic doesn't work, magic doesn't work, this is all stupid, magic doesn't work, Friday I don't get my rent paid. So, let's get into it. So hello, it's a very cold morning here in Ireland. We kind of did okay for the last while here winter-wise. It was quite mild, but it certainly has changed now and it's frosty, coldy cold. That's the way Ireland should be in the winter, I suppose. But being that it's spring next month, it's just, global warming, it's not called, what's global change, temperature change, climate change, that's the word. Certainly happening here. But yeah, so what we're doing today, it's the question and answer part of the month where people send me questions and I try to answer them. And so I thought I would do that outside in this lovely morning and have a bit of fun. So let's get into that. What exactly is woo woo? When I first set up the website Adventures in Woo Woo, I assumed, quite wrongly it seems, that the term or the saying woo woo was a well-known thing, that people knew what it was and that it was common parlance in many ways. Turned out it's not. Like, a lot of people do know what it is, but a lot of people don't. Woo woo to me is anything. If someone was reporting it on the news, if there was a news report about this topic, it would be the type of topic that they would put the X-Files team underneath, and that would indicate its woo-woo-ness, in that it's odd, it's strange, it's not norm, it's kind of kooky, it's people who are into it are probably weird, like things like UFOs, energy healing, magic, the occult, ghosts, Ouija boards. All of those things would be under woo-woo, woo-woo, where there's the kind of derogatory sense of putting people down who are into it. It's kind of making people out to be crazy and, for believing these outlandish, weird, terrible things for people to believe. And how could people, rational people, good people, think such terrible things? And be fooled by such weirdness. So that's what woo-woo is to me. Anything which I suppose a rationalist or a materialist would consider the opposite of science, based on woo-woo-ness rather than based on science or rationality. How can we absorb the sun energy efficiently or in large quantities? So I guess there's no better place to talk about the sun than out on a frozen morning here in Ireland. That kind of idea of absorbing the energy of the sun, it's a good one. There's good meditation for it where you literally feel the sun filling up your body, coming in through your head or your crown chakra if that's the way you go, and starting with your feet, filling you up with this golden energy the whole way through your body until it fills up, and then you radiate it out and you feel it kind of pushing out from your body or whatever. There is that thing I've read before on the internet, so it may not be true. Do your own scientific investigation on these things. But that even the idea of that if you're out in the sun and you willfully or purposely feel the sun coming into you, that it increases your level of vitamin D absorption from the sun. sounds kind of a bit woo-woo to me, but it's probably one of those things that in the end isn't woo-woo. It's probably there's a good science behind it, whatever. But I mean, that's where we get all our power, where we get all our thing from. The entirety of this world, everything that grows here, all this that you see behind us, every energy we have comes from sun. So it's our energy source. Years ago, or growing up, I always kind of thought, like, isn't it amazing when you see a plant growing, and it's like, where did that material come from? And I couldn't understand it, but it's the sun. It's changing one form of energy into another form of energy, into, you know, like sun into the plant, and that's that whole thing. So when you think of it that way, how would you absorb the power? Just think of it, visualize it, feel the power of the sun, the power of the energy, the abundant energy that it is, flowing through your body, or flowing through whatever it is towards the magical desire you have. And just do it that way, and kind of see it as a, you know, that you are a conduit of this great energy or whatever. So that's how I would use it. Another idea would be to get something where you collect it in, if you said, like, you could leave the sun card out in the sun, and, you know, the midday sun, and kind of, you know, with the idea of that it will absorb, you know, the extra rays or the extra energy, and kind of a booster, that kind of thing. And the way that you can do it, which, you know, you can make talismans from the moon energy, the full moon energy, and leaving it out overnight and that kind of stuff. It's one way of doing it. Again, the success of it, or the effectiveness of it, is all going to come down to you and how you kind of approach it and you feel about it and stuff like that. It will really make a difference to some people, it won't make a difference to other people. I don't think inherently it would, a card, you know, being infused with the sun in itself. I think it's the ritual that makes it powerful. So it all depends on what way you feel about the ritual aspect of that, and absorbing the sun. But you could do it into other things as well, into water, into a box, into any of these things, large quantities into your body. I would say just do have a regular practice where you willfully bring it into your body, you know, visualize it coming in, see it coming in, feel it radiating out, filling your body up, and that kind of thing. I have to move from here. It's getting too noisy. There's a building site just there, or a house being built, and it's obviously it's time to start all that. I'm a little frustrated because when I do sigils, so when I evoke a servitor, it doesn't work. What can I do? I'm going to answer that question in a bit more of a broader thing than just the invocation, the evocation of servants or of sigils and stuff, and to answer in the kind of, what do you do when your magic doesn't work? My magic didn't work for a long while, and it was a case of me feeling like, well, everyone else's magic was working, so it obviously works. It's just not working for me. And I thought then maybe was magic a bit like talent, where some people had it and some people didn't have it, or was there certain maybe types of magic that some people were better at than other people, like, you know, like in an RPG sense, when you're creating your character, what are you, a certain type of magician, you know, or sigils for you, are you a chaos magician, that's all that works, or you ceremonial and all that work, and all that kind of stuff. But ultimately what I found was that if your magic isn't working, it's usually you is the fault, you to blame, and not in a kind of victim blaming way, but in that you'll set up some blocks, whether it be from one, maybe lust of result is a very popular kind of one that people talk about, maybe over talk about or overplay, but blocks you have, like if you're doing money magic, say for instance, and you have deep subconscious fear of money, then it's highly unlikely that you're going to manifest money, you know, or success. Or there's a thing that happened to me when I started making money was, you know, because you have to start paying tax, and I had this kind of correlation between making money and owing money, and that kind of held me back for a while, because I felt every time I made money I was effectively getting in debt in a kind of a way, and that was kind of odd, and I had to unpack that and get through that and look at it that way, because you forget that, you know, you're making money. It's not just that all your money you make goes to tax or whatever, but there's loads of different things that we would have that would be, you know, buried within us, that we have feelings, like from, say, things that our parents said to us when we were growing up, or our friends, or just views or ideas we have about the world. And say like doing love magic or attraction magic, when you just totally feel unlovable or whatever. So working on these shadow kind of aspects of ourselves open up the doors to greater magic. And I find that if your magic isn't working, have a look at what kind of things you're bringing to the table and what blocks you have and what you're doing that may be hindering these things, and really get into the shadow work. It's tough, it's horrible, it's nasty. You find out how much of an asshole you are in many, many ways, and that can be horrifying. But totally worth doing it, and you come at the other end of it feeling much better about yourself, in a much better position to be, and all of these things start working. The more we kind of strip away of ourselves, the more kind of things that we hold on, or the ideas we have, the good ideas, bad ideas, all these, and we just let them all drop or whatever, the more we are open to all of the things that this universe or consciousness have to offer, and less kind of things that we hold on to, ideas that we hold on that we can't let go or whatever, the less we are able to function properly. Because we're trying. It's like that the Buddhist thing of that this the reason that life is shit or life is dukkha is because of the clinging to these ideas that we have, and that if we try to not cling to these ideas and a bit more open and have a bit more of a relaxed kind of view on who we are and what the world is, whatever, it seems to work better. So pause for car. So hope that helps. Is it possible to stretch myself too thin by having too many servants doing too many things? What are the best practices? So this question gets asked an awful lot in the 47 Facebook group, and it's about, can I do too many things at once? And the answer strictly is no, you can do whatever you want. But another answer would be no, you shouldn't spread yourself so thin, because you can't do all these things at once. Number one, you can't track them, there's an awful lot of stuff going on, and there's all this overlap or whatever. So as people, we can't do all the things. So in Magic, I don't think we should try to do all the things. I prefer smaller chunks and smaller, dedicated workings, and so I know what's going on. I can see where things are, I can keep track of things, I can see what things are working, where aren't working. But if you've like 20, 30 magics going on, how do you know? You will be able to a certain extent know what's going on, but it's a lot harder to track and stuff like that. So I would suggest, if you've a lot that you want to do, take it in stages. Find what's the next thing that has to happen for your life to get better, or get to the things you want, and aim for that one. Just go for that one, and then when you get that, go for the other ones, rather than doing all the things at once. Like, don't try to build a house, get a new job, and find love all at the same time. What's the next thing you need to do? Would building the house make getting a job easier? Probably not. Getting the job first will probably be easier to build a house, and then because you're getting a job, the social thing, whatever, you might find someone that you fall in love with and live happily ever after with. So look at what is the best next step to get you to all your places, all your goals or all the things that you want, and start there. And even in that, break that down into chunks. So if you're looking for a job, do sigils for finding a job, for job listings, for getting a job you want, for doing well in interviews, for whatever, just break it down in small, attack the smaller things first. But do as much of it as you can without magic, and then just rely on the magic for, putting things in your favour, because you don't want to use magic as an excuse to not actually do stuff, to be lazy or whatever. So do as much as you can from a kind of mundane material point of view, and the bits that you can't do in magic. That's probably a separate topic, but I thought it'd be worth just mentioning here. So yeah, if you've a million things going on, or a couple of 10, 20 things, then I would suggest pulling back. But like 3 or 4, if they're very disparate and they're different areas and that kind of thing, it can be cool. Test it. That's the best way. See how many you can do before you feel burnout, before you feel it's not happening. Start with one. Start with the smallest thing, not the smallest thing, but the next step that you need to do to get to where you want to be, and see how that works. And if that works fine, try 2, try 3, and when you get to 7, you might find, no, 7 is not a lucky number for me, it ruins everything. But try to be as focused on your things as possible. I can't do it with 7 things, I can't do it with 5 things, but at the same time, a shoal of sigils works best with 5. So, there is some sort of power in multiplicity and doing things all at once. That shoal thing works on a certain principle of, that works within that system. So you're going to have to find your own way and find your own thing. It's the best way to do. My advice would be to start small, don't try to do too much at once, and go from there. How can the servants help with practical magic, such as utilising the witch for sigil charging? The answer to this one comes down to an awful lot about what you think the servants are. Do you think they're actual autonomous beings that can help you in some way, or whether do you think they're aspects of your mind, or they're archetypes, or they're energies, or whatever? I kind of see them as embodiments of these ideas. That's not to say that, to take anything away from them or whatever, say they're lesser than, spirits or any of these things, but it's more that I think ideas are the most powerful thing in the world. So that's where I'm coming from. So it's an elevation of what we think ideas are, rather than trying to degrade or disenchant the magic. So for me, when I think of the witch and I using her to say cast a spell or to start a sigil or whatever. I see that it's like she's the embodiment of everything I think magic is, the power behind magic, and I can kind of, there's a feel to it, there's kind of this green colour to it. There's, she's in my head surrounded by all these kind of accoutrements and all these magical tools and all this, and she's the really powerful magician and all those things that when you think about like a wizard or a magician or any of those things, that's what she is. And I can feel what that feels like, what that power is, what that idea is, and I can invoke that into me so I feel like that. So I'm coming from that centre of power, from that magical place, from that idea of ultimate magic power, all of those things. And from that place I can then, people all around me, sorry, I can then push out that energy into whatever working or whatever I'm trying to do. So you can do that with any of the servants depending on what you're doing, but when you're trying to use, say, the witch to increase your magical ability or whatever, that's how I would see it, is build up what she feels like, what the feeling of the witch is, of that power, of that magic, of that's been surrounded by all the things, all the knowledge, knowing all the things that. And then from that point of view, push that into whatever you're trying to do, and to launch your sigil, to do whatever, and so it's, in a sense, it's kind of an invoking into it rather than evoking. But I find that immensely powerful, and that's 99% of how I use the 40 servants, or any archetypes, or any spirits, or any of those things. So mess around with that and see what you come up with. It's kind of very similar to Grant Morrison's when he talks about how he evoked John Lennon and stuff, by just surrounding yourself with all the things John Lennon-esque, Beatles-esque, pushing away everything that isn't that. So when you invoke, you just surround yourself, or think of all of the things that mean the witch to you, or to whoever you're invoking, and surround yourself with things that represent that, the sigil, the card, other things that you find represent it, and to the exclusion of all else, so that you come to the point where that's all you are, that's what the universe has become. You as the centre of the universe, centre of consciousness, has become the witch, and then from that place of power, and that idea, from that embodiment of the idea, push out into the world, or whatever is your desire that you're trying to accomplish. Any ideas for some fun magic? It's all been a bit like work recently. Fun magic, that's a good one. I like the idea of doing magic just for fun. Gordon White of Rune Soup talks an awful lot about to fill out sigil shoals and stuff like that, to do stupid things, not stupid things, but frivolous things like finding vegetables that's shaped like sexual organs or people or whatever, kind of funny things like that. I like to do things where I get, like, say, a knowing smile, or a really good joke, or find the wink and a nod from the universe, or things like that, like kind of more fun kind of things, that not everything has to be serious, not everything has to be about improving yourself, shadow work, or your increasing your material existence, or whatever it is. Little things like having good times around, laughs with friends, getting drunk with no hangover, a lovely meal, any of those type of things that you can come up with that are just fun and things to do that you don't lead anywhere. You don't evolve as a human being. Well, laughter makes us evolve and takes it all a bit less seriously. So there is definitely a time and a place for it. And one of my mantras that I stole from Stuart Wilde is, don't be so serious about all of this. Have a laugh. And Stuart Wilde was a very, very funny guy. I really, that's what the main thing that attracted me to him originally, apart from his ideas about the world and all that. But just try not to be serious and do stuff that's just fun, and don't be afraid to use magic just for fun. People have this thing that, you should be very serious about magic, because it'll backfire, or you have to, take it very seriously. Don't do things for the crack, as we say in Ireland. It just means for the fun, if you don't know. It's not for the drugs. So penis-shaped potatoes can be a good one, and a nice walk, anything, finding something stupid, finding old photos of you with your friends that you were mucking around in, and you're a mess and it's funny, all these type of things like that. So there's loads you could come up with there. So if you do think of any yourself, let me know, because I'm always on the lookout for cool ideas for fun magic. So there we go, that's all the questions I got this time, and I hope I answered them to some degree of successfulness, or to satisfaction of the people who asked them. It's very nice coming out here on the morning with the lovely frosty fields beside me. It's a very different field. It's the same field from last week where I was giving out about people. It was quite noisy here today, and there was people about, but this is the world we live in, what can we do? So I do these question answerings every month. They're meant to be just for patrons, but the patrons are very quiet when it comes to questions and answers each month, so I usually open it up to other people if I don't get enough. But if enough questions do come in from the patrons, they're getting first preference, obviously, because that's how it works. So if you have questions, send me a question. I'll answer it. I'll try my best to answer it. I mightn't have the answer for it, and it'll always only be my opinion. So yeah. So I just want to share you a very quick but effective activation sigil technique that I've employed in the past to great success. Usually when you activate a sigil, there's some sort of gnosis informed, meaning that you have to get some sort of state of empty-mindedness, or you remove consciousness, or you become one with consciousness, or many different ways that people have described it, but it's kind of a very focused state without distractions. This one's a wee bit different in that the activation is kind of a more indirect kind of way. It's kind of more closer to, I suppose, a spell than it is to a traditional chaos magic activation. I've used this before a number of times, and it's been quite successful. And when I think of this kind of activation, it reminds me of the one time that I had this client who just wouldn't pay me, and it had been going on a number of months, and it was just getting nowhere, and all my non-magical means had run out at this point, and I'd kind of given up, and I said, well, I'll try this activation method, and I just sigil, launch it into the world and see what happened. And lo and behold, about 3 weeks later, I got the result. I got paid. You decide whether it was connected or not. I feel it was, and I choose to believe it was. So what you do, the basic thing of it is, rather than doing any kind of extreme emotion or like a masturbatory release kind of gnosis or whatever, it's about leaving your sigil in a public place so that people will see it, or people will have to interact with it and therefore activate it. So what I do is I put it on a wee sticky note. I put it on the ground where people will have to walk, not necessarily a main street or anything like that, not the heavy traffic, but somewhere where people will go over it. I like kind of putting it in places where people go for walks. So, if there's a particular walk that is in your vicinity, that would be a good place to put it. I also like to put coins on top of it. And I do this because it makes people more likely to, bend down, pick it up, look at it and wonder what it is and kind of be intrigued by it. Less so if it's just, something on the ground, a drawing, they might just, just walk past it, ignore it, whatever. But with the added coin on it, it makes it a bit more likely that people will look at it. When I've gone back, then, the next day or whatever, they're always gone, and, there's nowhere to be seen. So it's as if they've disappeared in the ether. That's kind of how I see it. So from a magical point of view, I can understand obviously how it's activated, because you're putting it out into the world, into the consciousness, you're putting it out into, you're kind of bypassing your own consciousness and putting it into the consciousness of someone else. So if we are, as I tend to look at things, as a point of consciousness within a greater consciousness, to hack the matrix or to hack into the consciousness, we have to get this gnosis thing, which pulls aside our kind of mundane sense and pushes it into the chaosness of the greater unconsciousness. But in the normal activation, we have to get past ourselves, this gnosis thing. So this kind of bypasses gnosis of ourselves too, because it's using someone else to to hack into consciousness. From a psychological point of view, it works in that you're putting something out there to be seen, that you're making, you've one true aim, as all sigils are, so you have that going for you initially, but you're also making a public declaration in a sense. You're going out, you're ritualizing the thing, you're putting a line in the sand, a mark where you have, now decided that things are going to change. And from a psychological point then, you can move on from all of that and effect change. So both ways, there's a benefit, whether you go with the woo-woo or you don't, there is a good enough reason to do this. The ritualization of it alone will in some way affect, reality, whether you believe in the woo-woo of it or not. So try it out, see how it goes to you, and see if it's better or worse than your normal activation method. It's one I only use when I really need something to kickstart or really something to go over. If my other kind of magic hasn't worked or my non-magic stuff hasn't worked, I use this just to kick it along, give it that extra push or whatever. So let me know in the comments or message me or whatever if you use it and how you get on with it. So there we go, that's another show, and thank you very much if you made it to the end. It's great to hear, great to see you here, and I'm glad you enjoyed it enough that you stuck around for the entire show. If you want to know more about what I do or what I'm about, you can go to adventuresinwooboo.com, which will bring you to the main site, which is all the things, all the different links. It has the blog, the primer, all the stuff about the 47s, podcasts, all of those things are all over there. If you want to help me out, you can check out my Patreon, where you're, in return for your hard-earned money, you get the extended version of the show. But you also get a host of other things depending on what tier you want to do, so you can check that out too. All the links are below or on adventuresinwooboo.com. So good people of the internet, may you have a wonderful week, and may all your questions be answered. Be well.